Okay. So you've had a wee play around with the toys then, or the gifts, should I say? Sorry. The puzzles are impossible. Someone buys them for somebody, that's all it counts. So hopefully you've got an idea of your area of interest, but you don't need to make up your mind yet. You can go back, have a think about it, have a look at our website. The different products are under the in the product section, so the ranges are all together, so you can have a good look there and have a think about what you fancy doing. And then really, it's just a case of, once you've chosen either science, younger science if you like, science, gadget, curiosity area, the curiosities if you choose that one, have a look on those websites and so forth, or indeed the puzzles and areas of intelligence. You need to really just go away and do a lot of research. What's out there, you know? And once you've researched the area, you know, it's just advice, but you should spend a lot of time looking at the competitors, looking at our ranges, trying to really work out what is that little bit, that wee gem that you'll get that will make your product sell more than the stuff that's out there already. Because it doesn't matter how good your design is and how good your packaging is, how good everything is, it all comes down to that initial idea and that concept. If it just ticks the right boxes, it'll be a winner, and if it doesn't, it usually won't make it through the noise of all the other products out there. So I'd advise you a lot of research online, and indeed in retailers. You know, go into retailers, have a look around in your area. You know, if it's a science area or if it's a puzzle area, what have they got there? What do you think? Oh, that's clever, but they're missing a trick there. You know, that's the perfect scenario, and then you go, aha. And then once you get your brilliant idea or your concept that you're going to think about, I'd thoroughly advise you to Google it. Because usually it's been done before, and then you go, the amount of times we've come up with a great idea, and then the dreaded internet search goes on, and it's already out there, being sold in somewhere obscure, but it doesn't matter. It usually means that you can't do it. So that brings us on to the two main things that the two sub-areas that I'd like you to have a little look at, and they are toy safety and intellectual property. So it's important not to get too carried away. The key thing about this brief is to come up with a novel concept and build up that product and get the product great. Okay, that's the number one thing. However, it's also important that you do at least think through, and the discipline of toy safety, first of all, we'll talk about. Now, for that, things that give, I'll send out a further brief to Dave just on this, just to sort of give you a heads up on it, but basically, three main things really. Has it got a long rope on it? Is there a strangulation hazard? That's usually a problem, that's where we fall down. Has it got small parts in it that can be swallowed, and you know, then it becomes a real problem. Magnets are a real problem. Oh, blimey. There was a child horrifically died quite a long time ago now, but they basically had two magnets, and what happens if you have two magnets? You get one, goes into your gut, you have a second magnet, and they kind of flepped in your gut, and obviously your gut's made up, it's moving up and down all the time, and these two connected, and the child dies. So clearly magnets are basically a no-no unless they're in something very secure. And then the fourth thing, sorry, is any sort of projectiles. You see that we have the LED copter here. That, believe it or not, was an absolute nightmare to get through toy safety testing. So all these toys that we do have got to go through, I think EN 71 it's called, and it's basically toy safety testing. And there's other tests, electrical testing and blah blah blah. You don't need to know about that really, and we certainly don't want essays on it or anything else, but just so as you're aware, it's a very important aspect. So you need to check it off, you need to think through your product and think, inherently, what are the dangers of this product? And then just have a think through, being the consumer, what are any issues, yeah? The second area, toy safety is one in intellectual property. Believe it or not, it's actually quite an interesting area. Everyone goes, oh no, IP, and it's sort of, but, so there's three types that you've got. You've got a trademark. Now, trademarks are, what you're called, wow stuff. We've got a trademark, you've got a TM, and then once you get it registered, you put an R next to it, okay? So it's the name of something. And there's certain rules to how you use that name. So if you have a product, an important part of that product is the name, what you're going to call it. The best trademarks are the ones that are not descriptive, so you're most likely to get them passed. So Kodak is the classic one that everyone always says. What a great trademark, because what does Kodak mean? Nothing. They made it up. But it now means the film people, doesn't it? Before everyone went digital. I don't know if they're even in business anymore, but that was a side issue. But the trademark was brilliant, Kodak, utterly brilliant. Whereas Sky Tracer, no chance of a trademark. People say that's descriptive. But you can decide to go descriptive or non-descriptive. Again, have a look at the IPO, the Intellectual Property Office of the UK. It's got a very user-friendly website. Just make yourself very familiar with the trademarks. And the second one that we should talk about is design registrations, registered designs. So they cover the shape. Before I start saying all this, I should say I'm in no way a patent attorney or anything like that. Just a rough knowledge is a good thing to have. And anything we do, we go through an intellectual property specialist. We have a lawyer that does all this stuff. But basically, the shape, the look of a product, you can get a design registration for. And it's a lot cheaper than a patent, and it's actually really effective, because a lot of our copies, purely commercially, we do a design registration for helicopter bodies, for example. Now, if any factory copies that helicopter exactly, we've got them on design registration, okay? So then they would have to destroy the stock, the retailers they sell to would no longer be able to sell it, blah, 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 okay? So it's quite powerful and it's quite cheap. And the third one, of course, is a patent, the patent system. So that, it's a lot more expensive. And of course, with all these things you do in territories. So we always start with a UK patent, you apply there, and then you have a thing called a priority date. If you think it's a successful product and you have some sales information, then we go to the US, Europe, Australia, and other territories. So a patent covers its functionality in general terms. Just trying to think of anything here as a patent. Yes, great. Okay. Spaceball. What this has is, you'll see this little ball moves away from anything underneath it. So it's an infrared proximity sensor. So whenever you put your hand or the paddle underneath it, it moves up. So it's quite a nice play pattern for young kids. Just simply moves up and down in the thing. So we've got the rights for a worldwide patent on that. Well, actually, it's UK, France, Germany, and USA. But frankly speaking, that's the majority of markets in the world, volume-wise. And so it stops any other factories tooling up and producing that product. And certainly if it was sold in the UK, we'd stop them from selling it. So it's hugely important, because this is the cheapest flying product that I think can be made. We can retail it down to $9.99. So if anyone else came in with that, it'd be a big problem for us. But no one does, because we've got some intellectual property. So it's super, super critical, IP. And it's actually, it's an art, yeah? So you decide when to put in some IP, decide not to. Commercial decision, but we sort of drip feed it into products and then decide after a while how much. Because you could spend $50,000 on a patent worldwide with various things, and it might be useless to you. Or, like this one, you can spend a bit of money and it's everything for your protection. So, if your product does have any IP or potential IP, you should look at it, and then you make a commercial decision based on what you think the sales are going to be, whether you pay the money get the IP in place or not. But it's an important point of product development to think about that as part of the process of making your product. You know, what to have a patent anyway, it's got to be novel and inventive. Okay, that's the two rules really. So novel, something new, and inventive, it means if there's something before it, there's got to be an inventive step. So what is that? Again, go to the IPO website, get yourself a feel for it, because it is important. Okay. So really, that's most things, I think. Any questions now before we'll bring Dave in for the next step stuff after this? Eh? Yeah.
Do you have any problems with China just copying it? Because
yeah.
they do that a lot. They ignore these laws.
Yeah, but actually it's quite funny. In recent years, China has got a lot better at intellectual property in general. But yeah, we do. And air swimmers, have you seen the air swimmers, the giant helium-filled fish? That was a huge hit for us about 3 years ago, Ella, something like that?
Yeah.
So we sold to Toys R Us US, vast numbers, it was just superb. It moved the company from here right to there. But we then thought, oh, we'll get an Angry Birds license and different things, oh, that'd be really cool. Before we got the Angry Birds license, before we did the deal with Rovio, the guys up in Shantou, this area, this town in area of China, had already made them and were selling them. So they completely swamped the market. Of course, they undercut us because their factories are not ICTI. There's certain standards that our factories have to be to sell into the markets that we sell to the retailers and insist on. Theirs, of course, are really terrible factories. They're very, very cheap. They're very small factories, so not much cost. And they were basically selling to the trade at far, far below our cost prices. So nothing you can do. And they swamped the market. So what we did do, we had some patents on that. So we went through the court system, and 2 years later, and goodness knows how many hundreds of thousands of pounds later, we've got a judgment in our favour. But what does that mean? It means you get back a small amount of your money that you originally spent. But it stops other people doing it. And it sends out a warning lesson, but yeah, they copy it all the time.
Yeah.
So, but that said, you've also got to have networks. If an individual went to China with a one product, they would probably get copied. But because we know a lot of people now, we know a lot of the factories, we know the factories that copy it, to be honest, and you go, come on, and they go, okay. Because usually they're reasonable.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a non-stop thing. Anything else? Silence is contentment.
So now you're working on that, not really released yet? Or?
Yeah, always. I mean, like for 2015, this is the time that we get the prototypes together. It's our busiest time of the year actually right now. The sales guys are showing them all the products to retailers. Retailers are saying, oh, that's good, that's not so good. And then the selling process starts, so we've got a lot of stuff. The big headline one that I can tell you about is the Real Effects Racers. We had a Kickstarter project, went well, and it's basically it's like a Scalextric, but without slots. So you can go fast round the track, and it works with some optical sensors, and the track's got a gradient of light to dark, and so when the car has two optical sensors, it can tell where it is in the track, also what speed it's going, and also the angle it's at. So it's really, really cool. So it's, the map can be any shape you want it because it's made up of little track bits. It's actually a plastic paper we use, PP paper. And so go around, make your own track up, just like Scalextric. If you go too fast, you'll go off, but you've got to slow down the corners and steer into the corners and overtake, undertake. Very clever piece of kit. Graham, the other guy, he does all that stuff. It's way too clever. My idea. We just concentrate on. But it's a good point though. I mean, that's a toy, a classic toy. So it takes it requires TV advertising. So we've actually given it to another toy company in the UK to distribute. That might seem crazy, but it's in their area. So they can, their model is to put things on TV and to advertise, and they know the right retailers for that to work with the right buyers. Whereas our model is more mass production of gifts, you know, where the main people in the likes of Debenhams and Sainsbury's, and it's all about turnover of product, ideal price point £9.99. So, but have a look, Google Real Effects Racers and you'll see the stuff. It's pretty cool. And of course you can, I think they're just literally coming off the production line right now.
You know, something like that, how much would you aim to manufacture that for?
Yeah. Well, whatever the cost price in the shops, in an ideal world, if that's £10, which isn't, it's a bit more, then the cost price to us in the factory would be $2.50 in a perfect world. So there's a 4 times multiplier. And interestingly, it's a 4 times multiplier whether it's pounds or you sell in the US in dollars, just because of the way the taxes work out and the import duties and stuff. So in the US, if that's sold for $20, we've got to make it for $5. If not, then you're asking the retailers to go on smaller margins, they don't like it, and all that stuff. But what we tend to do, I mean, there's more to that's not your profit, it's nowhere near it. So something like that, you might do demonstration. So you demonstrate an artist. You'll often have a floor standing display unit. That's an example of the FSDU that we do in Debenhams. It costs a huge amount of money. You've got to get the TV screen, you've got to make sure that's maintained. All these costs come out of the actual cost. So in reality, I mean, we're Mattel and Hasbro go on a 5 times multiplier. We go in between a 3 and a 4 because we're small.
Where do you manufacture it?
It's all in southern China.
Okay.
Although, good news, we've had our first UK-made products we're going to be doing next year through a boomerang set. So the costs are actually coming down because you'll see the costs in China are rising very sharply.
Yeah, they're realising they've got
Yeah,
a market now.
yeah, and there's a big middle classes now, and there's a lot of the factories always struggle for labour. And in Shenzhen, the area that we get most of our manufacturing done, there'll be a minimum 10% increase in all lower level of wages again this year.
Wow.
It has been for every year. 1 year it was even higher. So eventually things will begin to balance out. I know already people are going to Indonesia, Vietnam, but then the problem is you don't have the infrastructure there. When we do actually we've got a second product, we do the poo in the box from Shropshire. And whenever we sell a product that's not made in China, it's a problem for retailers because they don't like it because all their systems are all geared up for China processing. So really weirdly, it's very hard to get them to, they don't like to buy from the UK. But is it possible the whole thing will flip? Maybe. Certainly not in the next few years, but maybe 10 years if China does continue to grow and we continue to increase the prices.
Who are your main retailers? Like, who do you aim for when you think of something like the Curiosity products?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's mainly, I think in the UK now 50% of our volume's done in supermarkets. So Sainsbury's, Waitrose, tends to be the posher supermarkets. Although we are working with Tesco and Asda too. But yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think all 3 of these ranges, it's your people that buy gifts tend to be, excuse me, tends to be the woman in the household, because blokes are too lazy and selfish or whatever to buy the gifts, and it tends to be for, so they tend to be the typical gift buyer of this sort of stuff is usually between sort of 35 and 60 years old. They'd be a woman, and they're looking for multiple presents, gifts. So the price point's critical. So price point can't be more than £20, no way. Preferably £9.99 again. And Dan, our UK sales guy, would argue that £4.99 is the price point now. So some of these guys fit into £4.99. The Sky Tracer, the thing fits in £4.99. The returning plane's £4.99. Microscope's £9.99 or £7.99 actually. And again, the balloon copter's £4.99. So actually, most of those products are £4.99. Science Putty as well. So I mean, that's mass. It's impulse buy. You know what I mean? You just go, good enough, sort of thing. It's just in your trolley.
Would you say something that could involve like the family at Christmas would be a good idea? Because it would be like parents trying to bond with their children while they're inside at Christmas.
Sure. Absolutely. I think if you can get it, it's tricky though. I mean, for such a low price point, it's difficult. I mean, that's the kind of classic sort of board game thing, or father and son kind of making a model together kind of thing. It's great. I think it's an individual product by product thing. You've got to think that there's some that it's a decent gift. You know, that I think that's the point. And I think the thing with Science Museum and Mensa, if this product, and they do sell it, if it was Tesco's here instead of Science Museum, and you get it as a gift, what would you do? You'd sort of go, flipping thanks. You know what I mean? Whereas you go, Science Museum. Oh, it's a little bit educational. Science Museum must be decent. You know, we're not saying this is the greatest product in the world, but what we are saying is that it's decent, and it is genuinely. It is better than what else is on the market. So, is it incredible? No, because it's £4.99. You know, but it's a decent present, and it's a gift. You know, I mean, you've got to keep in mind that if you got given any of the things that you're thinking about, would you kind of go, or would your target audience do that? If they don't, if they kind of go, Tesco's own label, bloody hell, you know, miserable, isn't it? You know what I mean, that's why licensing is so powerful. Because if you change that for Star Wars, Wee Boy, brilliant. Or My Little Pony, wow, great. Yeah.
Have you ever worked with like Star Wars or My Little Pony, like companies like that?
We work with Hasbro.
I know you said about the Angry Birds, but
yeah. We did a deal with Hasbro to sell our. We did a giant robot thing, a 6-legged attackant robot. And it was quite cool. It was about £60 retail. And then Hasbro did a Nerf version of it. So we do work with the guys and various other companies. But yeah, it's a bit of a different world though. They have, you know, a product development team is like, you know, they'd have a room just to, and that's part of their problem as well, I think, because they have kind of design by committee. And it's never great, you know. What they're very good at is designing out cost. I mean, they did a good job on our product to get the cost down. But then they went with a factory that was much more expensive than our original one, so the cost ended up being about the same. So, anyway.
If you have a look on YouTube, there's some really cool things on YouTube of that, and people adapting them and doing all sorts of things with
Totally.
lasers and things like that on there.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that product's a good example of an inventor item. The inventor came to us just with a walking mechanism, so it was a really clever 6-legged walking mechanism. And we saw it and we thought that's quite cool, but it wasn't enough on its own. So we got these detachable blasters. So we had a dart blaster, a disc blaster. You know, okay, we're inspired by Nerf, right? And expecting and hoping that they would do a deal with us, and they did. So currently, in fact, we've got the contract for all Nerf RC products. Problem is, with the recession and stuff, RC products are quite expensive, and when you add the Nerf license and stuff, even such a powerful license, it doesn't necessarily work out commercially. But it's a cool robot. Yeah, you should look it up. So the guy's now sitting in Panama. We've built a houseboat now. So this crazy Jamie we call him, and he's now in a houseboat in Panama with his wife and 2 very young children, or is it 3 now maybe even. So he's very eccentric, but worth looking at. Look him up and have a laugh.
Are things like packaging really important to you as well? Do you want us to focus on that?
Yeah, need to have a think about it. I mean, I think it's the same thing on there at the 4 points. I mean, you've got your product, then you've got your packaging. It's also just worth very briefly showing you this. It's not a terrific example by any means. The curiosities. Yeah. These things are all. Thanks, guys. Okay, so this is a counter display unit, or a CDU as we always call them. So it gives you a chance, especially when you've got a very small product, you need to think about how you're going to get across the message of what it does. So here we've got 3 diagrams, basically, images of what happens when you play with the product. Because, you know, what on earth is that? Well, pretty cool. Spinning sound and light show from solid steel spheres. That's quite interesting. How much is it? $3.99. Done. You know, but then in the supermarket shelf, this gives you a fighting chance of getting that 50-year-old woman to be able to see it, where the vision's probably not that great. You know, it's an important thing. And also, supermarkets and retailers, they like neatness. It's all stacked up like this. Looks nice. Because if they're just sitting on the shelf like this, quickly becomes a real mess. So, display is everything, really. So that's why have a good think about the packaging. We'll send you editable Illustrator files of your chosen licensed brand, and you can have a mess around and just to I mean, it's up to the guys, but we're not that. It's important you have a think through it again and have a go at the marketing. You'll see here the strap and taglines on the boxes. You know, what's the one-liner that describes your product? It's very important to be able to think about that, because it helps in the whole marketing side of things. But you know, it's an important part of the final thing, but hopefully we'll give you a good bit of help with that area. The product's king, first of all, but then think about the name and think about the one-line tagline. What is it? You know, sum up in one line, and that people go, yeah, brilliant, brilliant. A good example. We had we sold this aeroplane a long time ago. It was called. Well, first of all, it was a radio-controlled aeroplane. Didn't do much special, but it was decent enough. Didn't break. Made of this foam, and we called it the Virtually Indestructible RC Plane. Wow! We sold 10 times more than anyone else in the UK because of the name. Because we said, what's the thing that people hate about RC planes? They break. Yeah. And then we said, right, what will we call it? Virtually Indestructible. How many returns did we get? None. Brilliant. Just the same as someone else down the road selling theirs, and ours was in the Science Museum, and theirs wasn't. Ours was called that, theirs was just called Radio Controlled Plane. And everyone went, oh, that one will break. We looked at the two side by side, oh, you're going to pick that one every time. So it's all to do with that, really. So
This
yeah,
product maybe is sold to the adults or just to try children's. Because if someone to give the shop, maybe they want to buy some to mother, to father, or the girlfriends. Maybe it's not the children.
totally agree. And with all these ranges, especially the Mensa and especially the Curiosities, it's very much adult. It can be. It's 8 to adult or 6 to adult. The Science Museum is a little younger. But you're absolutely correct. And you've got to. Your product has got to fit in to the age group of that license. So if you had a Star Wars license a My Little Pony license, and you did our Nerf robot, you'd sell none, because everyone would go, what? It's not for 5-year-old girls. That's for like 14-year-old boys. You know what I mean? So you've got to be very clever and sensible about what age group you're targeting. Absolutely right, and that's got to be right up there on your list of when you're thinking about products and you're thinking about how does it fit into range. Yeah, absolutely. I forgot to mention that. You're dead right. Because the majority of the Mensa product actually is almost certainly bought for adults. It's not for kids, and we have one of the best sellers is actually the Mensa Calendar Challenger. And that, it's a page-a-day calendar, and in every page you have a Mensa question. It's the only thing I get from my dad every year. And bless him, he jumps out of bed and does the thing. My mum still laughs once he gets up and tries to do his Mensa challenge every day. Yeah.
I know it might sound like a weird question, but do you have fun while you're developing things, or does it become a bit old, like creating the same sort of product?
No, it's great fun. It's great fun, especially when you've got a new license. So we've got a new license, we've got a QI license, the Stephen Fry show. And the guys, they're just terrific, and they've got all the elves, they're real life elves. I don't know if you've seen QI, but they really do exist, these guys, and they research into anything. And as a personal almost hero of mine, John Lloyd, he was the guy behind Not Anything But News, Spitting Image, Blackadder, he's behind QI. So we get to talk to John Lloyd, it's so cool. So yeah,
That's brilliant.
and we met, Thingy Parks and Wallace and Gromit, and that's great. The creative side of it's fantastic, and it kind of, especially when we first get a license, there's a lot of creative thought goes into it, and a lot of, I always love whiteboard sessions. I think you get the most out of everybody, and it's a bit more relaxed, and you can just say whatever you want. You always start off, what are the brand guidelines of this range? I'll never forget the Top Gear one. We said, okay, when we started off with cars, and then we said, it's nothing to do with cars, it's about laddism and togetherness and kind of, you're in the thing, adventure and all this stuff, and we came out with a really great range, and we won the license awards from that range. And it was just because you set that initial brief and you really think about the brand, and then the products come very easily once you've got all that stuff sorted. Like, for example, what age groups are for. All that stuff. Picture the buyer in your mind and picture the recipient of the gift, and then work out the whole marketing, what's it going to look like, packaging, everything. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. However, I would also add that the majority of my job now is on toy safety and IP. So because that's the reality of it actually. The creative side of it is wonderful, but it's because of the way the commercial business works, it's shorter than it probably should be. The reality is, you get a product, you have a twist on it. That's pretty cool. Okay, go, and then you're on to the next one. I mean, we're doing. It'll be pretty close to 100 products this year, so we don't have endless time to look at each one and dissect it again and again. What we tend to do in product development is we have the initial product meeting to show the ranges and the products we think should go in each range, and then we bring everyone together and then we decide on some things, and they all go apart again, and then we bring it together again, and they all go apart again, then bring it together again. The more times you do that, the better it gets.
Yeah.
And if there's a bit of a gap between each of those meetings, that's also good, because you kind of just absorb stuff. What's doing well this year, what's doing badly, okay, I'll sack that one, that's rubbish now. What's the competitors coming out with, what's on trend. So,
Would you say like the safeties on like almost dumbing down some of the products that you make? It's like guys sort of like taking things apart and having little pieces to put back together. But at the same time, a kid could buy that and swallow small parts. So do you
Yeah.
almost have to stay away from certain age groups just in case someone else bought it?
well, we stay away, there's two bits to that really. We stay away from certain age groups just because it's not our core market and we don't have the buyers. So we don't do anything preschool at all. We tried and it was a disaster because we don't actually know the buyers. But on the dumbing down thing, yeah, and it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes because you can have a great product and then it's going to cost you $5, but you know you must get it for $3.50. So you've got to take some bits out of it, and then it becomes not as great a product. But commercially, you know it's the only way to do it. Yeah, exactly. So it can be a bit frustrating, but you need to be clever in engineering out costs that you don't need, but still keep the magic of the initial brief that made it a good product concept in the first place. But, yeah.
So do you almost think of your main product and then simplify it a bit and, like, say, show them the main product and if they ever need to change it, or hand them the previous one that you've already simplified? Let's say, would you go away and then do that?
Yeah, retailers they can't be bothered.
Yeah.
They just need a shelf space filled, so we don't give them choices. We try not to. You've just got to keep it very simple. We know their margins. We know what that has to sell for. We know how much margin they need, and so it's almost a done thing. We just need to sell them the brand, and once they accept the brand, they've got X amount of shelf space. Whatever product they take, and then they just want 4 at £5.99, 2 at £9.99, 1 at 20 quid, and so we work it back that way usually. But yeah, it's the dark arts of selling. I don't know much about it. We leave that to other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, I was
Dave,
gonna
you've got
just-
one last question.
Yeah, you said you sell most of your products into supermarkets. Is that the same in America and other countries?
Not really, no. In the States, Toys R Us is the majority of sales, and then in other places, it tends to be more department store type places. Britain's unusual actually in the masses of gifts. I mean, don't get me wrong, the US, well, Walmart, Target are still enormous. In fact, we sell both of them too. So I guess actually I've reversed that question. Yeah. Supermarkets, I think they're here to stay, aren't they? I'm afraid. The old, we don't sell any to independent toy stores really at all. For us, it's a mixture of supermarkets and department stores. The likes of Debenhams, the likes of, and indeed Argos used to always be good for us. W.H. Smith, Debenhams, all the usual suspects. But compared to those, Sainsbury's and Tesco's, and indeed even Waitrose, they kill them in volume.
Okay, yeah. Great discussion, but I know that we've had to get back. Yeah. So thanks, Kenny, for that briefing, and I'm sure it's enthused everybody in terms of now going off and doing your bit. We will, if you have your briefs tomorrow, if you bring those in, I can go through the rest of the brief.